Mail, the PM, says why I believe we have to bomb Syria.
Yeah, the Daily Telegraph, Cameron, we must act now against Syria. And again, West set for missile strike on the front page of the Times, with David Cameron looking in very serious and urgent mood. Well, MPs have been recalled from their summer break early and will vote on whether Britain should take part in military action tomorrow. And our political editor, Sue Jameson, is in Downing Street this morning. So, Sue, a crucial meeting of the National Security Council today.
Yes, that's right, because in a way, you know, many of the first steps towards action have already been taken over the last couple of years. What we're talking about now are last steps, whether it's the National Security Council, David Cameron, his key cabinet members, military intelligence chiefs. What he wants to do from this is to have a clear and probably uncomplicated motion to put to MPs tomorrow to get a vote through. But he also knows that there are many MPs highly sceptical about what we can do, what our involvement can be and our influence in such a brutal conflict. What began with largely peaceful protests against Syria's president in March 2011 has now developed into a full-scale civil war. Initially, protesters had taken to the streets to call for more basic freedoms in the country, but the security forces responded brutally. A rebellion started and the violence spread.
Urgent talks at the UN overnight have failed to agree a plan of action following the alleged chemical weapons attacks in Syria, in which more than 1,000 people may have been killed.
But it was these images of child victims and reports of an alleged chemical attack in Syria's capital last week which so shocked the world and led to calls for international intervention. The United Nations believes as many as 100,000 people have been killed since the conflict began, and 2 million refugees have been forced to flee to neighbouring countries to escape the escalating violence.
Joining us now is Labour MP Diane Abbott and Axelle Lemaire, French Socialist MP. Morning to you both. Diane first. You're willing to put your frontbench career on the line over this, aren't you?
I'm waiting to see what's said in the debate, but as matters stand, the British public have seen this movie and they know how it ends. There's no evidence that a Western intervention will actually make things any better.
But you said if Ed Miliband votes in favour of military action, you would resign your seat on the front benches?
I've said I'm waiting to hear the debate, but on the basis of what I know now, I'm not even sure this intervention will be legal. And it's certainly not the case that Assad is going to wake up the morning after we bomb him and say, oh, less of these atrocities. It runs a big risk of making matters worse and of dragging us into a civil war in Syria with no end game.
Well, you might be right in terms of what people think, because The Sun has a poll here where they say that Brits are against missile strikes on Syria by a majority of 2 to 1. Brits say no to war in Syria. So, Axelle, the British public don't seem to have an appetite for military intervention. Why do you think it would be a good thing?
I think we need to see the evidence gathered by the team of UN experts first. So it's either too late or too early to intervene. Too late because the toll is already 100,000 people who died in that war, and too early because the link between the regime and the atrocities that were carried out last week hasn't been clearly stated yet. So I personally think we need to wait. I would like to have that debate. As a French MP, I don't think Parliament will be recalled in Paris before the start of the session on the 10th of September if the evidence shows that there is a responsibility that we do need to intervene.
But Cameron isn't waiting for the evidence. Cameron is determined to bomb Syria.
But the fact is that France might do it before anyone else has made up their own mind, because we saw, for example, with France going into Libya, it reflected very well on Sarkozy. Is Hollande thinking the same thing? Because at home in France, he's got his work cut out and he's not very popular at the moment.
Well, there was a national consensus around the intervention in Mali. No doubt about this. Apparently, polls show that it's around 52% of the French people who would support a short, sharp, targeted intervention through strikes, but no long-term solo engagement. So it's not that clear that the French don't support an
No
intervention.
such thing as a short, sharp intervention in a Middle East situation. Iraq was meant to be short and sharp.
Ignoring it necessarily isn't quick, though, either, is it?
Well,
I think the whole region may
first of all, we need
implode.
to step up the humanitarian response because there's all these refugees flowing across the border, but also we need to ramp up the pressure on Russia and China. I would support a UN intervention, but the problem is that both Russia and China are prepared to veto it, so we need to put pressure on them.
Something you both agree on. Thanks very much indeed. Good to see you both.
Now, still to come, the foreign health tour is costing the NHS millions of pounds a year. Is it time to clamp down? Your views coming up.
And up next, where is the most enterprising place in the UK? You might be surprised.